Greetings. You are listening to Keeping in Touch with My People. I'm your host, Elizabeth Hansen Watley, here on WSTX AM 970. Numbers here 340-773-0390. 340-773-0490. If you want to check us out live, check out StreamYard.com. Look for WSTX AM 970. Also on Facebook, look for Elizabeth Hansen Watley on your Facebook dial. Good morning. You know how we started here. Happy birthday to all of you who are celebrating birthdays this week. And for those who are no longer physically with us, we remember them as well. Blessings to all of you. Happy birthday. Birthday to you. And may all your dreams come true. Happy birthday. Oh, this is your birthday song. Oh, celebration all night long. Oh, may all your dreams come true. We sing it together. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday celebration. Party night, feel the vibration. Lights are bright, feeling alright. We're dancing till the morning light. Happy birthday celebration. Everybody gets the temptation. Once again, this is your night, and everyone feels right. Happy birthday to you. And may all your dreams come true. Yes, happy birthday to all of you celebrating. We wish you nothing but more life, love, and happiness from everyone here on Keeping in Touch with My People and WSTX AM 970. Yes, once again, numbers here 340-773-0390. 340-773-0490. Yes, so many things happened this week. We went to Taste of St. Croix, an amazing event. I have to send congratulations to all of the participants and the organizers of the event. It was an amazing showing of great talent, good vibes, good food, drinks, and just great people. I was happy to be invited to attend. So kudos to Mr. Colin Hodge and his entire team at Taste of St. Croix, all the sponsors, and all the attendees. It was a beautiful event. All right. Also this week I attended the homegoing ceremony of the late Senator Ronald Russell. He was later arrested. Beautiful ceremony there as well. Celebration of life with all of his children and loved ones, his wife, and I was glad to be there to represent my family along with my daddy, Ezel Hansen, as his family goes through this process. And sadly, we know it all too well. We're sending our well wishes and our prayers and continued condolences. After all the lights have come off and the cameras have turned off, you still have to deal with that absence of that loved one. And it is definitely an ongoing thing. We are now going on our third year this year of our loss of my mom, Alicia Chucky Hansen. And I could tell you from experience, it's not something that is easy, but what you have to do is just remember that God is always in the midst of everything, and stay prayed up and stay together. You need to lean on each other for strength at this time. And we wish you all the best and hold on to the great memories. Good morning to all of you that are logging on. I see you guys. Annette, Karen, Henley, good morning to you. As you guys pop on, just send up those hearts so that I can see your name, because when you get on, your name is already slid up the screen, and so helps me to keep up with you guys. Good morning to all of you on StreamYard as well. So there is so many things to talk about. First off, Thank you all so much. Those of you who shared the information about our free summer camp for ages 8 through 12 years old. Good morning. All right, Annette, I see you guys. Mariposa, welcome, welcome. Hail up, welcome back. Yeah, so um, we have this free summer camp that is going on starting Monday, June 15th. It ends July 17th. Courtesy of Friends of St. I'm all over the place this morning. Friends of Elizabeth Hansen Watley at the Brew House, which is in the Five Corners Plaza. So many of you called me, you're trying to get in touch with me. So here's what we're going to do. We had registration yesterday, and we have extended registration today. Listen up to the instructions. So we extended registration today from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the Brew House. The Brew House is located in the um, Five Corners Plaza. If anybody knows the Starlight nightclub, that building it used to be in, next to the dental office is where we are upstairs. And we'll be there from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. to get your young camper registered. Now, spaces are limited. However, I'm trying my best to extend myself because I know a lot of people need this help. It is free to the parents. We provide breakfast, we provide lunch, and we'll have cultural games, history, movies, and so forth, and just great healthy engagement with your young camper ages 8 through 12. Now, I did make a little exception for some 7-year-olds, but that's between you and me. That's our little secret. So, if you have, especially if you're in the Harbor View area, which is just close by, get the word out. We have limited spaces, but we're still taking young campers because we're trying our best to help as much families as we can through summer, and not everybody can afford summer camp. And so I opened up the brew house to utilize as a space for the summer camp so that you have a safe place for your camper to be while you do what you have to do during that time for summer. You can also text me at 340-201-0639. That's 340-201-0639. I know you guys have friends, families, your little grandkids, your nieces, nephews, your sons and daughters. Get in touch with me as soon as possible. I mean, I stayed up all night getting messages, but it's first come, first serve. I'm trying to be fair with everyone. So come and meet me at Five Corners today between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. And I will do my best to get your little camper into the program. And, if there's a special situation that you think that we could work out, I'm open to trying to help everyone as much as I can within the guidelines. So don't just say, okay, we don't qualify for this or that. It's not based on any kind of income where you can get this. This is for everyone. I know that there's people that are struggling no matter what your income may be. People have bills to pay and they have obligations, and so we're not looking at your salary or anything like that. Just bring your camper out and we will register them as long as we have space. We have a cap of how many young campers we can have, but we're going to do our best to do accommodations, and make it work. So this is a community thing, and we're working out and helping everybody as much as we can. Good morning, Ilma. Good morning, Rosie Jacobs. Morning to you. Let me see if I could go back and see some of y'all. Jennifer, good day. Thanks for logging on. Aldwin, good morning to you as well. Yeah, so spread the word. 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Five Corners Plaza at the Brew House. We'll be there to register your young camper, okay? Free of charge. Come out, come out, come out. Once we're done, we are done. We start on Monday. All right. The hours are 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. We are providing complimentary breakfast and lunch for your campers and a good old time, right? Okay. So said that, now did my housekeeping. I was trying to come on and be very, very positive like I usually am. But there are some days that we have to talk about the real that's going on, right? And Lord, let me tell you, I let some days pass because when I first heard about this information, I got upset. I got upset because, there's one thing to say that we have an issue that we cannot address based on whatever the circumstances are. And then there's another situation where I know that based on certain people making the right steps, we can alleviate a problem, and they're just deciding not to address it because of whatever vendetta, ego, whatever it may be. So let me just lay it out on the table and let y'all know what I'm talking about. Um, so there was a story run by a news outlet that spoke to the taxi cab commission and basically the lack of support from the legislators who feel like they should not invest the type of money that was requested by Senator Bolkes to update the taxi cab commission's computer systems. Now, this has been an issue that has been holding back. The taxi cab commission has not gotten um, technology improvements, to my knowledge, for many, many, many years. The system is outdated. And one of the things that, as the board chair, I have been trying to push for in conjunction with our new executive director is a updating of the system because that is how the agency will be able to better serve the community and collect and track records as well as funds that come into the agency. Now, this is part of our transparency plan that was implemented. The board made major moves within the last year. Um, since I've become the chair of the taxi cab board, we came up with a plan of action that a short-term plan of action to improve the system. This included starting back the dormant 5-year program, the program which was inactive for about 5 years for taxi classes, taxi operator classes, so that we could get new drivers on board. That was number one. That has now started. Since we started, we've been able to graduate classes already, and we are actively having another class going on as we speak. So we did that. Check off. We had our new executive director that was acting installed as a full-fledged. She's no longer acting director, executive director to taxi cab. Check off, right? We were able to bring on board 2 officers in the district of St. Thomas so far to do enforcement. Check off, right? Going down the list, these are short-term tasks that were placed in front of us collectively, and the executive director was tasked with executing these things in collaboration with myself and my colleagues on the board, and these things have been done. And so in addition to that, we put a plan together. We've been working alongside Senator Bolkes to vet his bill, to make sure that we got everything that we needed and our assessments and everything done to request this monies for the that's included in the bill, to make sure that we update our computer systems, like I said, to make sure that we can better serve the community, speed up processing time, which we actually did with the applications in the interim of waiting for this money. In conjunction with UVI Cell, we have a better vetting process for who gets into the class and the turnaround time for the class, the payments that are covered by the Department of Tourism. So this is a group effort, right? We're working in tandem, getting things done. Now, fast forward to the bill actually coming to the legislature, and we have certain senators who have already made up their mind that they're going to stick with their talking points from 5 years ago about the chaos on the board and the lack of transparency and taxi cab commission and how there's no productivity. 5 year ago, um, talking points because they don't make sense now. Anybody that reads any of our reports would know those are a thing of the past. The board has no dissension going on. We have 5 active board members as we speak, and we've been able to produce more within the past year or 6 months than has been produced in the past 5 years out of the board. So to say that nothing has been done is just ignorance of the facts. Or you're just putting out BS to the public because you have another agenda. Now it's getting very clear to me that there's another agenda. Why? Because you're saying that you want more productivity out of this entity, but you have basically defunded the entity. You're only giving money to pay for salaries. You're not giving any money for improvement on a large scale. That's number one. Number two, to go out and publicly say that nothing has been improved after you've gotten multiple reports, after you've called us out after working hours to collaborate with your entity, with the first branch of government, to do town hall meetings lasting all in the wee hours of the night, catching boats and all of these things to make sure that we're engaged. We went above and beyond to connect with you as a body. We came out and we spoke. We weren't just present, we engaged, we spoke. The taxi drivers and the different associations came out in support of this, support of getting the taxi cab commission the supplies and the monies needed, not only to hire new staff, which everybody says is needed, and an emergency. Apparently, not an emergency anymore. Now, all of a sudden, that it's an election year, all of a sudden, taxi cab doesn't need the money, and they need to move under DLCA, and they need to do this and they need to do that. There's a reason why Taxi Cab Commission is a semi-autonomous entity. Secondly, if anybody took the time to read, these senators would know that it used to be under DLCA, and there was a situation that occurred why it was moved from DLCA. But I'll hold that thought. Greetings, you are on Keeping in Touch. How may I help you? Good day.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
How are you today on this beautiful Saturday?
Man, I am standing. I am feeling pepped and ready to go.
Okay, great. I just tuned in. What's the situation with the taxi commission?
Well, basically, the first branch of government is not wanting to fund us to the level that we want to be funded, based on saying that there's no transparency documentation, that we're not producing at the Taxi Cab Commission, which is completely false. There have been a multitude of reports showing that staff has been brought on board for enforcement, that there's a new executive director, that there's a new application process that is transparent in collaboration with UBI Cell. Turnaround time, it has improved, and all of this with a lack of funding. Okay. And, at this point, it's becoming clear to me that this is becoming a political football, and nobody cares that the Taxi Cab Commission has been working through all the trials and tribulations without the support of the legislature. Basically, what has happened is they have been asking for funding to update their computer systems. We're in 2026. I don't know when last they had any update on their system, because based on the archaic situation that is there now, there's no production that could really happen without us using our personal items and computers to make it work. They've been limping along and still getting the job done. And I think it's a slap in the face for just a handful of employees that have been keeping that place open and productive, to be told that after all their hard work, that it's for naught because Our senators want to use it as a political football and not use the funding where it should be utilized.
Is the commission made up of a board? How it works?
Yes, we have a board. I am the chairperson of the board, and we work collectively with the executive director. So we've set
Okay.
regulations and also a plan forward as far as how we're going to improve the taxi industry. And it's not just about maintaining and collecting fees, but also evolving the system so we can keep up with our neighbors. And so we've been going through that process, and everything is documented. But when we get on the floor, and we talk to these senators all the time, but then when we get on the floor, they're talking a different story. So I trying to figure out if I'm in an alternative reality, an alternate reality where you're telling me one thing, and then in a meeting, we're going out to town hall meeting supporting you, saying that you're supporting taxi drivers. And then when we get on the floor, it's like we've never met. I'm starting to get confused here.
Well, you continue doing what you're doing. I commend you for maintaining your integrity. And, we know this is an election cycle. People can see for themselves. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. So I am vetting my candidates, encouraging people to do the same thing. But, some people don't accept certain realities.
Mm-hmm.
Don't we have a Republican form of government?
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing people say, no, we don't. I'm like, well, what kind of form of government we have? We sure don't have a monopoly. I mean, I see.
Well, I think that there is a lot more of education that needs to be had, because when we hear Republican now, people just assume you're talking about
There's
the
a
Republican
Republican
Party. Correct. So again, civics. But that's why people like you are important to spread that knowledge. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why I keep doing it, because I know we have a lot of talk shows. This is the talk show culture. People listen. Not everybody calls in.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's entitled to an opinion, their own beliefs, theories, conclusions, and even delusions. But you're not entitled to your own facts. So I try to focus on the process, and that's why I ask the question for my understanding, my edification, because knowledge is power. And I've been doing this as a community service. And people telling me, why you don't run for office? I'm like, because I'm not a politician, or I'll make a lousy politician. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I just believe in telling people, giving you the facts, and sometimes facts are hard to accept. And sometimes the truth is an insult. But I will continue anyway, because I believe all of us can make a difference. I'm very disappointed that you have board of election members who are promoting distrust of the election system, and they are encouraging people not to participate, or actually outright campaigning against Democrats. I know you're not running as a Democrat, you're not in the primary elections,
mm-hmm.
but I think that is so distasteful for members to be on a board and actually campaigning against Democrats.
Well, I was curious to know the rules and regulations as it pertains to that, because I would figure you had to be neutral. I mean, of course, you have your right as a constituent. However, in that particular position, my impression was that you were to be neutral. So actively advocating against these individuals, I am again, and this is why I'm very particular about the things I get involved in, because I see it, and it doesn't matter who's doing it. For me, if right is right and wrong is wrong. You can't try to disenfranchise people, which you're going to do. That's going to be some of the fallout of what you're doing because of your actions, and you're a representative of the board of elections. And so, but every year, like clockwork, especially during an election year, there's chaos and confusion when it comes to that area. I've lived through it, so I could tell you firsthand. Um, you know, everybody should know about that debacle with my mother being put on and taken off the
Perfect
ballot, put
example.
on. They basically disrupted her entire election down to probably a month before the election, and then said, okay, she can be on, but we already printed these ballots, so you're gonna have to run a write-in campaign, which we pulled off, by the way. And like I tell people all the time, people kind of were confused as to what happened. And she was successful in that write-in campaign. And then we were taken to court by another candidate who was not successful. She had been close. Well, let me not say close. The votes weren't close, but she had fallen to the eighth place and decided to take us to court. And the court decided to seal the results. Their argument was, although you are a write-in candidate, if, you were not a legitimate candidate. Up to now, I can't tell you how that is even the case because even the Board of Election allows for write-in candidates. So, but we know
Mhm.
good luck and sheep luck is not the same like the old people say. We took it for what it was, and but the records are there. Long story short is there seems to be a trend of implementing certain rules based on who you're dealing with.
Yeah,
You know,
I,
it's
I agree.
unfair and I think it's disparaging to a lot of people because you should be able to entrust some sort of faith in the system that you're going to participate in and choose your official representatives. And I'm looking at it. I have a problem with it. I don't know who would look at it and not have a problem with it. It is nothing in particular with any one or two um, persons on the board, and I'm speaking collectively because this has been historically what happens. And that's why I think there needs to be stronger laws when it pertains to how they conduct business. This thing about 6 months out, you could make a change and all of that. I don't agree with that because there's fallout. When the change is implemented, then you have
Mhm.
to now deal with cleaning up the mess, the confusion that is going to trickle into the election of that year. I don't think
Well,
any changes or anything needs to be done within a year of an election. If it's the year before, fine. But within the
yes,
year of an election, there's too much damage that happens, whether it's a candidate or aspirant, or just the reflection on the system that you cannot clean up in time for the election to take place with people feeling comfortable. But that's my
and
two cents.
well, sometimes people use the court as to weaponize because, for example, the situation with the legendary Alicia Chucky Hansen and that part in the revised organic act, you can be convicted of felony. She was not convicted of no felony,
Correct.
or crime of moral turpitude.
Mm-hmm.
Now you know that the governor vetoed one of the bills proposed about the same issue.
Yes. And up to
But
now, there's no real clarification on it.
no, that's the same thing. As I
However, they
said, the
did try
court
to they
weaponized
did
her.
try to use that against her as well. And like I said,
Yes,
at the end of the day, I think the impression it left with me is that we have certain people in this community that will change the rules or try their best to taint the rules because they don't want to go up with you fair and square. I think that whether you liked or you didn't disliked Alicia Chucky Hansen, everyone could come to the conclusion that she was a very strong senator, and when it came to campaigning, a strong candidate. And so they tried everything under the sun to get her out of the race instead of going toe to toe and head to head with her. And that was just part of the shenanigans that took place. But you know what? At the end of the day, we wrote it out. It made her stronger and us as a
thank
family
you.
stronger. And it also was an example to others that when you get into this thing and it's very serious, and I had a discussion with another candidate about this. This is real life. this comes with real consequences. The people that you choose get to determine the lifestyle and the quality of life that you would have in your territory. And some of the mistakes they make can be everlasting. And this is how serious it is. You know, I've met some people that told me they stopped voting a long time ago, but they'll go back and register for me. I said, don't do it just for me. Do it for your children, do it for your grandchildren, do it as an example, you know, because it means more to me that you even partake in the process, even if you don't give me a vote. Just be active because people died for this right. And we cannot afford to not have a say in what happens to us. And that's how serious it is. I mean, look around. Things can improve, yes. But to say you're going to wash your hands of the responsibility of being a part of the process, I think is an insult to everybody else and those that made a way for you. So I tell people when I don't vote, but I don't, it's okay, think about it. But let me tell you this, it's not just for you, it's for all of us.
Exactly, because the government is for us. We create a government,
Mm-hmm.
and a Republican form of government is one in which the supreme power lies with the people by them electing their representatives. So when you give up you're a quitter, you're surrendering your rights and privileges, and you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. You're not making things better. But going back, why the government want to think is the thing with moral turpitude. And the same thing, they have never, the legislature, defined. But I guess it's a case, we call it case law, because the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands ruled. But I believe that was personal, but they made her stronger. And you know, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going.
Yes.
So she became stronger, and now they're saying they don't even want to do it for delegate to Congress.
Jen?
They don't want to put in that part about you know, you can be convicted of a felony or a crime of moral turpitude, and you have on the board. I'm telling you, I am not afraid to speak the truth. Because what I'm giving information can be verified. You have to amend the board to push this particular candidate for delegate to Congress. And I like to believe she has a bogus address, and people could go and look it up. The ruling with Judge Malloy with this individual trespassing, and people land and claiming she has a what do you call it? Land pattern. Do you ever heard about anything about a land pattern?
Not a thing, but you hold that thought. I have a guest coming on, and then I want you to call me back, okay?
Okay, have a beautiful, blessed day. I don't call you back. You continue to keep up the good work, and I know it's a big shoe to fill, but you're doing a good job of keeping the legacy alive of the legendary Alicia Chucky Hansen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. I have a special guest, Miss Frances. I don't know if you could create more lighting on your side.
I can't really, but hey.
Okay, so but they can hear your voice. So we have Miss yeah, that's a little better.
Yeah.
We have Miss Rashida Francis on with us this morning. And I want you to introduce yourself to my listening audience here and keeping in touch, and tell us a bit about why you're here this morning.
Well, first, I want to say a pleasant good morning to you, your listeners, the people of St. Croix, and all who can hear our voices this morning. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm here because you extended the invitation, and I'm humbled by that. Uh, I am a native born Virgin Islander. I have lived away for quite some time. I left home in 2013, and I just returned back in 2024 to take care of some personal matters. What was supposed to be a 3 month stint has now turned into a 2.5 year return home, if you will. I am a mother first and foremost. I have a son. He's now a senior at Xavier University. I'm very proud of him. I am the daughter of Raymond and Winifred Francis, also known as Double and Winnie, out of St. Thomas. That's where I was born and raised. I am a teacher of 12 years. Special education is my specialty area. I am a grant writer, and I now work for myself as a consultant where I help nonprofits and for-profits get started and, seek funding and scale their businesses, if you will. Today, I am, an aspirant for delegate to Congress. I am going to be vying for the position as a write-in candidate. I heard you talking about the success your mom had. And so, but I am here too to just talk the politics because, like you said, who we elect impacts our livelihood, whether or not we live in the territory, because our families still live here and we all want a home to return to and that we can be proud of. So I'm here to talk the thing, like the people say.
Okay, all right. So you are out of the St. Thomas, St. John district,
Yes,
and you're running for Congress.
yes,
All right. So far, um, we have a few people in this race, and
yes,
we've been hearing your name. The people of St. Croix have not been quite introduced to you yet.
yes,
So I know that you and I have had a discussion before. Your father was a long time taxi driver,
yes.
and
That's
that's how we actually met because you came out to the town hall meeting. And when you were done, everybody was like, "Who is this lady?" But me myself, I was quite impressed with the way that you could just engage the group on behalf of the taxi drivers as a family member of a long time taxi driver and speaking to the real trials and tribulations that come with it, the business, and also the dedication taxi drivers have. Usually, people come out and they bash taxi drivers. Oh, they making all this money. They against evolving and so forth. And what I appreciated about that time when you were speaking, even that night, that whole situation, we found out that well, not we, but because I know, but the populace found out that these taxi drivers um, do evolve in their business. A lot of them are taking cards and all this technology that we're claiming that taxi drivers don't have. They do take,
right.
electronic
Different forms of
payments.
payment.
They've
Yes,
facilitated evolving their businesses. They've reached out and done their homework. They've gotten younger individuals involved to assist them on their
right.
own. And so I appreciated that you were able to even speak to um, your experience as the daughter of someone who would be out working long hours, and worrying about their safety and the concerns you have, and also passing on that legacy to other family members, you
Correct.
know. Yeah. So
Yes,
if you
because
could speak a little bit to that, um, where you were expressing that as a daughter of someone who you saw sacrifice all that time, because I tell people too, it's not just a sacrifice for the drivers, it's their family too, the family that's behind waiting to make sure that your mommy get home, you know,
correct.
and maintaining the transportation to washing the bus, all of these things that the family have to get included in.
Yeah. Yeah. So first I want to say the taxi industry in the Virgin Islands is a gateway industry for a lot of young men and now women, right? But back in the day, for young men especially, and also for retirees who at the time maybe had made the years in government, but they still had lives outside that they had to support.
Mhm.
And so for me, I know my parents were able to send me to college because I'm a child of two blue collar workers, right?
Mhm.
And my father's a retired fireman by industry, if you want to say that. And then he bought his taxi van after he retired, and I think at that time he could give the government 20, 30 years and retire. So firemen, they worked, one day 24 hours, and then they were off 3 days. So the days that he was off, to supplement the income that he was making with as a fireman with the government, he and two of his friends invested in taxi vans and the medallion. And back in those days, let me show you how the men used to work together. Uh, when I understood my dad's story, he didn't even have the money right away. He and his friends used to do a thing called a partner hand. And when it was his, and so each of them started the partner hand to say, we gonna pay for each other's like a percentage of the medallion through the partner hand, and he had to wait his turn to invest in his medallion. So over the years, my father has been very vocal for taxi drivers to the point where he um, matriculated up the system and held the secretary position for the Taxi Association in his time. So I just wanted to give some context to people so they understand that my father, as a young 30-year-old, 40-year-old coming up in the ranks, if you will, and at the fire station, was also coming up in the ranks in the taxi commission, taxi association, taxi commission. And back then, they were fighting to make sure that other outsiders weren't able to come in and infiltrate the system, um, and essentially push those drivers who were local, who were also government employees, who were supplementing their household incomes with this income, push them out, right? Because I was at the time in the 90s, especially, there was a lot of talk about like mirroring how the taxis are ran in the United States, predominantly at the time New York.
Mhm.
And so he was very vocal about that. And that's where there was legislation passed to really make the taxi industry what it is today, right? And so that's as much as I know of the history, because these were conversations around our kitchen table. And so my dad, I didn't see it as politics. I saw it as my dad speaking about his job. You know what I'm saying?
Bread and
And me
butter. Yes.
listening to him talk about his day at the office, if you will, right?
Right.
Because we would also have conversations about the fire station and his job at the fire station. And it's true, my dad, and I learned that in the Virgin Islands at that time, there was a fire every day. There
Mhm.
wasn't always big enough to make the news, but the
Mm.
firemen were being dispatched at that time every day. And at that time, also, women couldn't join the fire station, you
Mm.
know. And so I remember having a conversation with my dad saying, Dad, I was a little girl saying, Dad, I want to be a firewoman. And he said, you can't. It's unfortunate. You could be everything else, but you can't be a firewoman. And my mother
Yeah.
saying, sorry, man, don't tell a girl no shopping is, by the time she come of age, things going to change. So this was my family. You understand what I'm saying? But I am
Yeah.
a little girl looking up to my father and wanting to be like him when I grow up. So I give in context because I want people to understand that um, if my dad and my mom were not who they were, integrating themselves into the community the best way they knew how, I couldn't be here today.
Mhm.
People need to understand that salaries back then weren't where they are now. And so if we are frustrated at where salaries are now, think on what our parents were managing and making do with as
Correct.
government employees, as private sector employees. So the taxi drivers were really relying on this income to move the needle. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, Okay, so to answer your question now, my advocacy for the taxi cab industry comes from the fact that now, as an adult, a lot of my peers are taxi drivers, and this is their sole source of income. Me being a business owner, I understand that you eat what you kill. There is no perfect industry. So my thing is, we should not be coming from a standpoint of negativity every time we are engaging the taxi industry. It is too negative. These are people, these are Virgin Islanders. These are our brother and sisters, our neighbors. They are taxpayers. If you have an issue with the way the infrastructure is designed, then have that conversation. But I got tired of hearing the negative connotation and conversations around the taxi industry, the taxi commission, and
Mhm.
taxi drivers. I remember I was in college and there was like a rash of attacks on different taxi drivers throughout the St. Thomas St. John district where they were being robbed. Some of them lost their lives, and you weren't hearing any outcome. Was there an arrest made? You know, nothing. You weren't hearing anything other than the crime that was committed. And I remember how that shifted my household. And my father was like, I'm not going out after 6. And and back then, before I went to college, what my father used to do was he will go out, leave the house sometimes 5 a.m. because he had to be down to the airport for the first flight to land and be in a line. They always have to be in a line, and wherever you get in a line, that's your turn to get your van filled, your vehicle filled with passengers. So he'll leave sometime at 5 a.m., but he always came home at 3 because that's when my brother and I would be coming home from school, and my mother was still at work till 5. And then
Mhm.
he would stay, make sure we had something to eat, and then leave back out around 4:30 for his last run of the day if he had something scheduled, because he would work with a tour company so people could call them privately to get a taxi. And then he would always be back home by, sometimes he'd be out till 11 o'clock at night. But once those crimes started, my father said, I'm going to be home at 6
Yeah.
for his safety. And back then, nobody wasn't thinking I go carry a gun, my right to bear arms, and all those things.
Mhm.
So here we are, present day, and we still aren't having those conversations. There's still no infrastructure, no real dialogue with the taxi drivers themselves to say, hey, how can we help you all feel more safe? But we are wanting to put in laws to say, to mandate you have to collect, allow for credit cards, you have to allow for other forms of payment. But you
Mhm.
have to understand, when you have a customer in your face in real time, and then it's time for them to pay you. If they give you a credit card and it doesn't work, even us, if we go to a grocery store or to a restaurant and we give them our card, and then they come back and say there's an issue with the card, we ourselves are start to flutter. How? What? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Imagine that on the road. Imagine doing that 10 o'clock at night. You know,
Mhm.
we create these perfect scenarios in our head when we're arguing and championing things, but they're not always realistic. And so I
One
decided
of
to put my voice to the issue. Yes.
Yes. One of the things that I look at is there's a comparison between, well, we know there's a whole big thing about this rideshare industry in
Yes.
coming into the territory with our standing taxi drivers. Now, any of us who have done the research know it's two different industries as far as how they operate.
Yes.
And while we talk about rideshare is a pre-booked transportation. So that means that even when you pre-book that, your payment is processed in a certain way.
Real
They
time.
gather and lock in their money before they even pick you up. Now, with the taxi driver that is on real time, you may swipe your card, and I'm just being the devil's advocate here. Um, there's nothing that says that you can't, because we've heard this, that people swipe the card and then they cancel the
The charge.
transaction.
Yeah. But
Right.
they dispute it and say they didn't make the charge.
Correct. So I think that while rideshare is something that we cannot deny because it already exists
Mm-hmm.
in the United States, and we are under the United States flag. Let's be real. The rideshare is all over the world right now. The thing
Mm-hmm.
is, we have to figure out how they can coexist. You should be protecting your main industry and our entrepreneurs in taxi.
Right.
This thing about thinking that only one can exist and the next one can't exist, and so we got to get rid of taxi drivers, is that ignorant way of thinking. And it's also a slap in the face for those who we've been relying on for all of these years to give us transportation. And all of a sudden, we think that we should sink the taxi cab commission and inadvertently negatively affect taxi drivers because we want to see some other industry flourish. I
So
don't agree with it.
let me interject if you allow, please. Because this was another point I raised when you and I were at the town hall meeting here at the legislature in St. Thomas.
Hmm.
I think the Virgin Islands needs to move to a transportation department,
Hmm.
because what the Virgin Islands has done is shifted public transportation, private transportation, charter transportation, by roadway and highway to the taxi driver.
Hmm.
When every major city like what you're referring to that has rideshare has a robust public transportation system.
Correct.
Nobody talks about the failing transportation system that we have in the Virgin Islands by way of Vitran. I am not saying Vitran doesn't meet the needs of some, but as a collective, Vitran has failed to upgrade with the times. We
And
don't
I
even,
brought up, I'm glad you said that
yeah,
because I brought up Vitran when they had the town hall meeting in St. John.
uh-huh,
Because trying to force taxi drivers to pick and choose and fill a need when you have public transportation that is government based, that isn't impactful like it should
right.
be, and not addressing that is under your purview as a government entity is a problem.
It
You know,
is.
we should be working in tandem to make sure that we better serve the community. We shouldn't be guessing when a veteran comes by and so forth. And
Exactly.
if it is that you say you have schedule, we need to better market that schedule so that everybody knows how this thing works. Because right now, it's a hit and miss. And then you're trying to force taxi drivers. Why you ain't picking up people when they got cruise ship? Well, they always got cruise ship now. They are entrepreneurs. They're not government
Exactly. They're
employees.
not government employees, and the government does not pay them to do this. The government have individuals that are being paid for public transportation. But here's my thing. It's not even to bash Vitran, right? It is
Mhm.
to say, as a collective, transportation needs an upgrade. And if it continues to be a subgroup or a subdivision under a large department that's responsible for roads, responsible for public works, all that public works is responsible for, it's going to continue to be treated as a subdivision. Transportation needs to be better coordinated, because when you look at days where there are ships in, right, and we always have tourists coming through the territory because they come on planes. So I also want us to shift that thinking about we accommodating cruise ship days, because that was the main a large part of the conversation at the town hall that I attended also. So my thing is, when cruise ships are in, traffic and traffic control is crazy in St. Thomas. I don't know how it is in St. Croix, but it's very crazy in St. Thomas. I
Mhm.
am made to understand on the flip side of that in St. Croix, after 5 o'clock, when everybody's back to the ship or the last set of flights have come in, there are no taxi drivers really to be found, right? For people maybe coming in later and need a ride to get a taxi.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to where you spoke about your dad, and there's the safety. That has
Yes,
always been a territorial concern that after about 5:30, 6 o'clock, these drivers have decided it is safer to not traverse the road in the night because there is no safety mechanism if something happens.
correct. So
And
here,
and in addition to that, these drivers are older now, and for a while we weren't having taxi classes, so that kind of hampered them to be able to pass on certain things, get people to do business with them, lease out their transportation and so forth. And so these are some of the things that the taxi cab commission's board has been trying to address, and that's we restarted the classes and everything. So now trying to update the system so that, we have a number of people that, because they have older people that were in the industry that may have retired, may have passed on, they're looking for the information to track down the medallion, whatever else. We
right,
have to update the system so we don't have to keep telling you, look, we gotta look back in all these papers that store away this and that place, or that we don't have it, or whatever the case is, because it makes no sense. It is hampering you from productivity and being able
correct.
to start another entrepreneur to get into the industry.
Right. And also, it's time sensitive because if you don't make
Absolutely.
certain payments for your medallion, you could lose the medallion, but you're waiting to get somebody to help you find the actual medallion. Um,
Correct. So all of those things, well,
things are issues. Right.
right. And
And
that's
so,
why they need the money. This thing
yeah,
about they don't need the money to update the system and this and that. But then you were quarreling about the system being archaic. I mean, either you're going to do something about it or you're not going to. But playing this little game about it not having transparency and all of this, and using all
right,
kind of old time talk before from people that are no longer a part of the agency, not
right.
running the agency anymore, or not no longer on the board, I think is counterproductive, and it's something that's not going to help us evolve. But I want to pivot out of that.
Okay.
Um, as you said that you're running for Congress, let me ask you, what was that spark that made you want to pursue running for Congress?
Okay. So, my steps are always ordered by the Most High God. I have to always say that. Because like I told you earlier, I came home for 3 months to deal with a personal matter, and now I'm here for 2 years. I've always been involved in public service. I've always lent my voice to issues locally or wherever I live, whether it's on behalf of a family member, a friend, or for myself. But what made me decide to run for delegate was at the time, I really was not comfortable with one, the relationship that I see existing over the years between the delegate, the executive branch, and the legislative branch. I wasn't comfortable with how we were viewing the role of the delegate, where the role doesn't have any real defined job description other than to say you advocate on behalf of the territory in DC. You have a you are a House of Representative member, and how what committees you can vote on and what you can vote on. There's no real defined rule. But coming from the state of Texas, living in Dallas City per se, and seeing how the state representatives would communicate back to us as their constituents, seeing how the House of Representatives individuals would communicate back to us as their constituents, and then not seeing that happening home, I was concerned. And I felt that at the time when I made my decision, it would be more of the same. And it was time for us to have fresh representation to take us forward in an innovative way from 2027 and beyond, right? Because we're going to get elected this year, but your term really starts in January of next year.
Right.
And then also understanding what's happening in DC and in the United States, how our governance has changed, how it's kind of like a delicate walk between what you're supporting on the House floor and what you're championing on behalf of the people of the Virgin Islands. I felt like we really need someone in that position who understands just how much of a delicate walk that is. You're building relationships, you're networking. You can't always push Virgin Islands, Virgin Islands, Virgin Islands, because like right now with the young man in Texas that went to his track meet, and now he's now found guilty for killing. And the young black boy is now found guilty for killing a white boy who it was bullying him, and he now got life. Now the whole of the national news and political figures have shifted their attention to this polarizing event because in the United States we are dealing with heavy, heavy, heavy reform and changing of laws that were designed to protect Black people and their civil rights. That is going to have a matriculating effect on the Virgin Islands. And so
Absolutely.
that's what caused me to say, you know what, Rashida, it's time to put action behind your words. Come from behind the computer screen. Come from off the phone with your friends every day talking politics and put your hat in the ring. So here we are.
Awesome. So tell us a bit about your background as far as your professional experience.
Okay. So I didn't choose politics, politics chose me. You'll hear along the campaign trail people saying I have the experience in as a politician, this and that. But politics is a politician and politics is really public service. So I have a life of public service. From a child growing up, the history is there. I was always willing to do anything that my mind told me I could do. I never conformed to limitations. And if you remember me telling you, there was a time as a little girl around the kitchen table saying to my dad, I'm going to be a firewoman like you. And he's saying to me, you can't, right? Because at that time, women weren't allowed to be in the fire, to be
Right.
firewomen, right?
Mhm.
To join fire. So my whole thing was that I didn't know that, but it shaped me. So second girl in Charlotte Amalie High School to play flag football. After I did it, so many girls after that started to sign up, started to come out, started to join. Um,
Mhm.
in terms of my professional career, I was one of the founding members of Sparks. If you know about Sparks in St. Thomas and John District, it's a really robust um, nonprofit youth organization that was formed by Senator Judy Gomez, right?
Mhm.
So I've always been around politics, if you will, but in a different way. Now, in terms of my career, I spent a bulk of my time as a teacher. And remember when I said you're going to hear a lot of people say, well, I was in politics for this amount of years, or I championed this bill, or whatever. But majority of politicians starts in education. They start as educators, right?
Yes.
But somehow when they get elected, they forget that part of their
Their
political
career.
career,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so that's what really shaped me because I realized that everything that happened in my classroom was governed by politics from
Mhm.
testing. And I used to be so advocate and against making my special education students have to take standardized tests. My principals knew me because I always used to come, but I had gotten so diplomatic and formed such a relationship with them that they would hear me out. You understand what I'm saying? It was never
Right.
combative, but I was just that passionate. I also as became a mom, my first year of getting my actual teaching certificate, because I started out as a para, then I was a substitute, and the very first year that I got hired as a certified teacher, I was pregnant with my son.
Mm.
And now having to not only be a teacher in the classroom, but advocate for his education, right? It shaped me because I said, oh wow, now I really realize what parents are going through. When they come to me as the educator and say, what is going on with my child? And my son didn't have a diagnosed disability. So imagine you going through your child entire education career, people only speaking to you about what is wrong or what can't happen. And
Right.
so as a teacher, I decided to change that once my son started elementary. And I realized the conversations I was having and how I had to advocate and posture. And I had to decide, am I going to go in today as Rashida Francis, the teacher, or am I going to go in as Isaiah's mom?
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward down the line, I said, okay, once he got into middle school, I wanted to be more available and involved because I was one of those parents that understood you don't become hands off once your child is in middle school and high school. We tend to think they're older now, they need more responsibility.
I
But
think
you know,
that's the area when they need the most interaction.
exactly.
And
But
yes.
you just have to change the way you do it. You
Mhm.
understand? You ain't gonna be hugging and kissing them in front of the school because they're gonna be like, Ma, what really going on, right? That's embarrassing. But you
Yes.
still need to be in PTA. You still need to be communicating with teachers and all the things. Okay. So I pivoted and I also decided that I was going to get into government because at the time I had just finished my master's. My son was living in St. Thomas with my parents, so I could finish my master's. And once I was finished, I was like, okay, time to come back to Ma. And when I came, he was like, no, I want to stay. Because you know, we're living with your grandparents, they spoil you.
Oh yes.
He loved VI culture, he loved all the things about it, and he loved being with grandma and papa. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I ended up working for the first UVI. And just to accelerate this, I worked with you said the Disability Rights Center down at UVI, and I also became a professor, one of the youngest to do it. With just my master's degree because of my extensive background in special education and just my desire to learn. I was hired and I worked at UVI as a professor for 3 years. I left USAID and went to Department of Health. So yes, I always had two jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I at Department of Health, I moved up the ranks very quickly to go from being a coordinator of the HIV/AIDS program, which is called Ryan White, a federally funded program, to the project director. And within my 3 years there, my tenure, we were able to move that grant off of drawdown restriction and the requirement to have a fiduciary. It was a lot of hours. I thank God I had my parents and I made the decision to stay home. I learned a lot, and that's why I learned to write grants. I learned about compliance. I learned about the difference between federal law and local law. And when it comes to federal funding, the federal government will give you their rules. However, the governor of the Virgin Islands is the person that receives all federal funding that the government receives, no matter the agency that writes the grant.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned working across the aisle because at that time, everybody saw HIV as a death sentence. In those days, we couldn't even put up billboards about, and we had to um, be creative in how we did radio ads warning people about safe sex because in those days we were even more
It was a
uh,
taboo subject.
serve, yeah, and the things that we would discuss. And I remember at the time we were told we can't put up anything advertising HIV because we're a tourist destination and we don't want to get the word out or any messaging that people could get sick if they come here. Imagine that, right?
Imagine
So
exactly.
yeah, so we had all those campaigns and so I learned a lot in those 3 years.
You have to be very strategic.
Very strategic.
Mhm.
But you also had to make sure that you got all the information from all parties. Because if you just sat at your desk and created policy or created a campaign and you are excited and ready to roll it out, you got to remember that this thing got to go to your commissioner for approval and even the governor. because again, the governor receives all funding. Now, of course, they hire you to do a job and they want you to do it to the best of your ability and to follow the rules. But you would think, oh, the governor ain't gonna worry about me putting out an advertisement about condoms. But he did. You understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. Because
So,
everything affects our product
yes,
here, and then tourism is our number one product, and so you have to
exactly
be careful and conscious of everything.
correct. And
And
then
that's why you have to have skills to finesse.
yes,
Yeah.
and certain words evoke a lot of emotions in different groups of people, right down to your spirituality. So I'm just thinking I point out an ad because my grant gave me money to do it, but now I could set up a whole chain of events in the entire
Correct.
community.
Correct.
I am
And
happy
back
now
then they didn't talk about trigger and thing. Now you see it on TV trigger
to Vada.
warning and
Yeah,
all of this kind of thing. Um,
exactly. We
Everybody's
couldn't have
hyper
no
sensitive.
pride parade and all these things that people would automatically associate with
Yeah,
communicable diseases, right?
right,
So
right.
yes,
So we
and
evolved a
that's
lot.
we have evolved a lot. So that
Yeah.
is that training I took with me, and we eventually moved back to the States. And since then, I had worked at various universities in their grants management office. And in 2016, I decided to give myself the birthday gift of my own business. And that's where my consultation business was born 10 years ago. I now have two distinct businesses, one in the United States mainland, formulated in Dallas, Texas, and one here called Amaze VI in the Virgin Islands. And so that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years, really helping nonprofits and small businesses get started and find funding. I've been able to help people secure over $15 million in funding. I have
Mm.
some of my clients from day one still with me out of Dallas. And most recently, I helped the Lutheran churches here and the St. Thomas St. John district, Reformation and Nazareth in St. John, secure FEMA funding to secure their churches for safety. Because believe it or not, we are an open port. And so we have to be able to protect our churches because anyone at any time can walk up and open fire in our churches, right?
Right.
We don't know who is who. And so the things we are seeing in the US mainland where people are bombing churches, opening fire in churches, that can happen here. And so
Well,
we
we
want
can't get too deep into that now.
yeah.
But what I want you to do is, with your final comments, let the people of the Virgin Islands know why they should be supporting your run for Congress.
You I encourage the people of the Virgin Islands to support candidates that bring fresh ideas. You cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. If you continue to vote for the same people, you will continue to get the same results, regardless of whether they're running for a different office. Um, you know, look for people like myself who are bringing fresh ideas. Look for people like myself who have a vast majority of experiences that can impact your life. But most importantly, I'm asking the people to vote for me because I am one of you, not just a child of the soil, but I understand motherhood. I understand how it is to live check to check. I understand what it means to be moving along in your life with your plans, and then a natural disaster comes, and here we are. Your whole life has shifted, and 10 years later, you're waiting for the government to still uphold their end of the bargain. I have been through in the trenches things like economic crises, the up and down turn of the economy, and so I not only bring the ideas, but I know what you are feeling. I am a people person. You can touch me. I am real. I am live. And I understand that when you run for office, it is not your personal agenda. It is the agenda of the people of the Virgin Islands, and that's what I am aiming to do. So thank you for the time, and thank you for considering me as your next delegate to Congress.
Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to hear you out. We wish you the best of luck on your run. And
Thank you,
of
and I
course,
wish you the best too.
Thank you so much, and I guess we'll see you on the campaign trail.
Yes, you will. All
All right.
right.
Have a great one.
You too. Have a
Okay.
blessed day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Yeah, that was Miss Rashida Francis in the St. Thomas district. Jen, we get her
All right, Maestro.
plaza.
You ain't gonna die.
Okay,
Come on.
of this.
Behave your little bratty self. Come
Jen,
on. Come.
I need you to log it out. Yeah, so that was our guest for
Come
today.
on.
So
Outside.
like I said before, keeping in touch is here to inform everyone on what is going on here um, in the territory. And so we had a write-in candidate by the name of Rashida Francis come in and give us some information about her interest and why she has decided to throw her hat in the race. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about was within this race, there's a lot of things happening. And I've been asked a lot of questions about um, what do I think about other candidates who are being supporting, who will I be supporting in the gubernatorial race. I've been asked about, um, you know, what I think about what's taking place in the courts with the prosecutions that have been taking place. And there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening. It seems like every morning you wake up, there's a new story about some new debacle taking place. And what I would say is, what I think about candidates has more to do with not just their skill set, but their character. And I think that now more than ever, the community needs to look at character of an individual. You can come with as much skills as you want, credentials and so forth, but character plays a large role in how someone can perform and make the decisions that count, whether it would be positive or negatively impactful to the territory. And while some of us say it's not important what you're doing in your private life, it does play a role in the way that you operate and the decisions that you make. And I think that we've gone through enough things to realize that it does play a role in what you do. Greetings, you are on Keeping in Touch.
Greetings.
Hey, how are you?
I'm blessed. I listen attentively to the candidate.
Mm-hmm.
So she's running as a write-in.
Yes.
Okay, so she will be in the general, not in the primary, right?
Yes.
Okay, you do
Yes.
write-in. Can a Democrat do a write-in for the primary?
I don't believe that you would be able to do it for the primary, just for the simple fact that the Democratic Party has to vet you and give you
Right.
endorsement. So I would think that once you're a write-in candidate, you go directly to the general election, if I'm not mistaken.
And you will have to run as no party.
Well, here is the thing. I don't remember them saying that your distinction has any effect on how you run as a write-in. So I don't think that that would preclude her if she's a Democrat, because write-in is basically up to the people to decide who they want to put
Right.
down. Yeah.
So it's interesting. I mean, that's why we need more clarity, and that's why I continue asking the question. So,
Right.
and the issue with the separate ballot, it is in the federal law to have a separate ballot for delegates to House of U.S. U.S. House of Representatives,
Mm-hmm.
but it has been violated from the onset. I mean, who made that decision to not follow the law. But sometimes, even though it is in the law, it can be challenged for being unconstitutional. And I believe that is, even though it's in the Revised Organic Act and the U.S. Code, that law is discriminatory because it's only applicable to the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's unfair because, and when these laws are written, they haven't been any update, and it should have been amended. I remember going to a meeting, a town hall meeting at the board, the election office in Sonians, and that was before the primary election. And I specifically asked a question. I guess I saw the supervisor of elections acknowledging this is in the U.S. code for the separate ballot. So I asked the question, and basically what I was told is it needs to be amended. So they have plenty time to address the issue.
Correct.
And none of the delegates to Congress candidates even bringing that topic up.
Mm-hmm.
But she did mention it's the role. It's an evolving role. It's more than a lobbyist.
Yes.
And that person plays a big part.
Absolutely.
I think they need to have some restrictions there in terms, and we do have the right. I don't know why they said things you can't put that there, that you can run for delegate to House of Representatives if you are convicted felon, because it's in Guam, and Guam doesn't have a constitution like us. It's governed by the Revised Organic Act. I know it's our de facto constitution. So that's the one that they didn't put in here. So I think that needs to be addressed by other candidates. Need to tell us why that should not be amended, because they're going to Congress, and if Congress makes the law, they can amend the laws. And so we need clarity on that. And like the governor is saying, yes, break it down. What is a crime of moral turpitude? It could be many different things, but it could come up to it's open for interpretation, because if you park in the
which is dangerous for it to not have a actual definition, because then it's up to whoever is in charge at the time to decide.
Exactly. And whoever is in the Supreme Court of the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Right.
Because politics play an important part in it. But you mentioned something about character. I keep hearing people say, don't vote for people that you like.
No. See, here's the thing for me. Just like how those of you who have, let's say, tried to apply for a higher education, right? Even if you try to go to Harvard, you could have the best scores. That is not what Harvard is going to look at exclusively. They want to know what community engagement you had. Where did you volunteer? What are you associated with? Who your parents are? Are you a religious person? What are you associated with? They don't just pick you up based on your scores, because anybody could get those scores, generally speaking. So yes, character does make a difference, especially in a position of power, where your credentials are not going to be the ones that set you aside, but what sets you aside is your character, the decisions that you're willing to make when people aren't watching, right? I think throughout this process, we have seen, sadly, that we have had people that were entrusted with certain areas of power and have let us down. And so you cannot go there and say, oh, well, they have all the credentials and this and that. You have to look at the whole full picture. You know, we used to have a standard for people. We used to, even for president, we had a certain standard. The things that I think all of us could agree, the things that we are seeing now in present day are things that maybe even 10 years ago would have been something that we could not fathom. You know, the biggest scandal when Obama was president was that he wore a brown suit.
A tan color suit,
Right.
imagine.
So that's to tell you how much of a level of a standard we had for the president of the United States. Of course, that was a silly thing, and we know that because he was different and that he happened to be a black man, they were looking for every little thing that they picked because they couldn't challenge him on his work ethic, his morals, his family values, or anything of that nature. So they had to go to the tan suit. Fine. Not now. That is a thing of the past. When I was growing up, the biggest scandal was the Clinton and Monica Lewinsky situation. You know, before that it was you know, Nixon, you know. So we have come a long way, but what I am true to is your moral standing and your character makes all the difference, because you may not have had the ability to go to the best schools. That doesn't mean that you're not intelligent. That doesn't mean that you still can't figure it out and maybe even be more brilliant than those who have pursued higher education. Because I've come across a plethora of individuals that may not have been able to, for whatever the circumstance, their parents couldn't put them through to college. Some of them didn't even finish high school, but you couldn't beat them in math and literature because they self-taught. Their parents did the best they could, and they took the opportunity to educate themselves. So it's not something that is amiss in that you cannot be able to get yourself to a certain level despite what your circumstances are. But one thing I could tell you is character. Character is something that is engraven in you, and it makes the world a difference in the decisions you make for yourself. And if you run for public office, the people of the Virgin Islands.
Well, integrity matters to me. And you could you could have a superb resume. On paper you look wonderful, but action speaks louder than words. And this is a small community. We don't have a population in this territory of more than 100,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
So for the most part, you will hear about some candidates involved in certain situation. It's no secret. But we also have double standards here. The women are put on a higher standard than the men in office. And then the next thing, you have...
you think so?
I think so. I do think so. For a woman to make it in politics as a strong leader, you have to prove yourself twice as hard. You got to put effort in it. And so it's like one of a kind, the legendary Alicia Chucky Hansen. And then you have some selective prosecution, hypocrisy, where some people could get away with murder in this community because they are well liked. So when I say character, I think some people have a misunderstanding of how the English language could be. It's one of the most strangest language, because you could use one word and it means different things to different people, like the word kids. Right. It's an affectionate term for children. Some people think it's offensive.
Right.
Some people say,
speaking about the animal.
Because it's baby goats.
Right.
My point, though, is that you have people running, and it's up to us to vet them. And when I say I don't vote for people I don't like, I talk in character. Your character might be dirty character, like that song by Shabaran.
Yes.
Dirty. You might be competent. You could get the job done.
But you say a pretty face and bad character.
That's right. So when I hear people like, don't vote for somebody because you like them, I'm like, well, I'm sure I'm not going to vote for somebody who I don't like your character.
Well, I
So
think
it
that
has
when
to
they
be
hear that
thoughtful.
you don't like them, I think they're thinking that it's more of a surface thing. I don't like her because of this or that. No, no, no. I think you're talking more in depth about how the who the person is as an individual, you know.
Right, your personality, your
Right.
character, your behavior.
Your behavior,
So
yeah.
that's why I said the English language is a funny thing. But it's up to us. It still come down the battle line to each individual have to make up their mind when they go into the poll. If you and your higher power, if you believe in a higher power,
Hmm.
nobody's there to give you no undue influence. So I could tell people it's just get to know all the candidates. It's the candidate's responsibility if you're a relatively unknown person, if you're not a household name, you gotta sell yourself.
Right.
And it's not just like it's just words.
Hmm.
I mean, you have to demonstrate your words and your behavior must be consistent. And so it's accountability is on both ends. We as the voter, and that's why I don't believe in nothing about sub-districting where I'm disenfranchised and I can't vote for this person because I'm not from a district. No, they make all of them aptitude and they make laws for all of us, right?
Correct.
And I want to vote. Me personally, I would like to vote for all of them that representing me. So
Hmm.
I believe in it, and that was the idea that was supported by the legendary Alicia Chucky Hansen. She believed all of them should be at large.
Hmm.
And I do the same thing, and I say to the people, you make the choice for yourself. You vet your candidates because they don't put themselves in the office. This is what we know as called representative democracy. And for those that say we don't have a Republican form of government, I wish they would explain what kind of government we have then. And
Well,
those
I'll
that say
have to
we're
let
not
you
American,
run and
yes.
let somebody
One
come
last
in.
thing, those that say we're not
Yeah.
American, I think if they have a passport, they need to check it out because they get it mixed up between nationality and ethnicity. We are Americans.
Hmm.
All Americans are not U.S. citizens, but all U.S. citizens are Americans. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Greetings. You are on Keeping in Touch.
Yes, yes. Good Saturday to you.
Greetings. How are you?
Okay. The funny thing happened to me. I know it wasn't that I was partying all night. For the
Hmm.
past 2 days, I was working with a crew on some marine engineering, doing some work at sea. And I haven't done that type of work in a lot of moons. So we were pushing it. We wanted to finish it. We finally got through this early morning after going like 18-hour days. And I was totally pooped and I went to sleep. Now, I remember listening to some of Jamilia's, most of it. I believe I heard when you came on, and then the lights went off in my brain.
Mm.
But I woke up. I woke up to when I heard a young lady talking, and all along I didn't get the name or what. I didn't realize she was running until I heard Vordell talk to you and was asking whether this person was running as a writing candidate.
Oh, Miss
Then I realized,
Rashida
I said,
Francis.
gee, this lady was talking very good.
Miss Rashida Francis from
So,
the St. Thomas St.
yes,
John district. Yeah.
oh, she's from St. Thomas, is that?
Yes.
Oh, wherever she's from, she seems to have a grasp of the subject's matter.
Hmm.
And I wonder, though, I mean, things change a lot in the Virgin Islands, even in politics. I mean, I've been involved in it for about some 60 plus years. And when a person run as a writing candidate, it is after they have lost. Let's say like Berry one time lost running for the governorship, and then she went back and run. No, but she did run on a ballot. But some people, that is the point that they mount a writing campaign.
Hmm.
Is that sound like what you grew up to know?
Yes, there was usually some issue occurred, and so because of that, they had to, because you have deadlines that have passed, and they could not
Yes,
legitimately become full-fledged candidate
right.
aspirants, so they have to launch a writing campaign. And I believe that Miss Francis had a situation that caused that to be the recourse that she could take.
Oh, okay, okay,
Hmm.
good, good, good to learn that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have some good candidates, and I continue to hear some people say, and I don't know why they would say this against their own people. I mean, if you are a Democrat or a dominant Democrat, and that is all you want in the government for perpetuity, if that's what you want, then of course you would say, oh, we ain't got no choice, ain't got nobody else, so we got to put them back in. I don't know why we would limit ourselves so faith. It's
Well,
ludicrous.
when I've heard that, and I've heard a few people say that, um, though the majority are just saying they just want fresh people because they're not satisfied. The thing I think about is longevity in a
Mm-hmm.
role doesn't mean you're great at the role, because
Of course not. Of
if
course not.
so, then I don't think there would be so much people running to replace you. And
Exactly.
people are saying, well, it have 2 open seats. No, you have 7 open seats until November 3rd when those results come in. There will be seven
Thank you.
open seats because,
Thank
like
you.
I said, had people been satisfied, there wouldn't be so much people running to try to make a difference. And
Right.
so this idea of, okay, we're gonna have to do this and do that because we don't have someone that's prepared, when you're saying that the people that are representing you right now don't seem prepared themselves. I mean,
Right.
it is not a good argument in my book. But like,
It's certainly
everybody
not.
has their choice to make at the end of the day.
Right. No, like I said, if they are comfortable with that, and I'm talking about, well, they could say the majority in the fact that they have the majority in the three branches of government. That does not make the dominant Democrats majority of the entire voting population. But the fact, if you're comfortable with it, then you're comfortable with it. But for God's sake, don't try to encourage others not to run. It's a lost proposition. You're going to waste your money and all this kind of stupidness to try to keep people out of this thing. And, I always wondered if anybody, and it runs even to nationally and internationally, if you are that great and bright, why in the name of Jesus you don't open several businesses? The private market is what drives the economy, not government. The government spends money willy-nilly,
Mm-hmm.
like throwing up $1 million in the air, and 10 people get it. And then so then you say, well, then I help 10 people. Give me a break. Why don't you have 10 million people or 100,000 people? So I don't know. I don't know about that. But let me just go quickly and say that this morning on the earlier show, I heard a young man, 24-year-old young fella, who's in business, and seemingly, from what I was hearing with Jamila and Maurice James, who was the co-host there, that he learned from a family business.
Mm-hmm.
And like some family businesses that does not thrive after the principals in it have died or passed on, he is keeping those businesses going and moving them to greater heights. And
Yeah.
he ought to be commended, because whereas the governor, in our shortage of manpower to do capital projects, is saying that he has to bring in 8,000 Venezuelans. This young man knows that there is a talent through the community, and he's vetting them and getting them placed in positions in his business, and he is ready to take on part of the big projects that's coming in. And I'll close by saying this because I've always maintained no contracts, not, let's say, a $10 billion contract supposed to be given to no one person. Cut it out and stop it. You know why you're doing that? Because you're getting something out of it. For some of these things in as many small projects, you could have on construction site, you could have some companies that just deal in steel. Steel has to be placed at certain weight and engineering science with it and to tie up the steel. Another small one electrical, another small one plumbing, another small one welding. Look how many families and people would be helping rather than one big old stinking contractor that you bring from the States. You never know him. He's a good for nothing where he come from, and he come a good for nothing now what's that when he reach the Virgin Islands because he find that we are stupid and we like to give away money. So again, thanks for allowing me, and have a good rest of the weekend, man.
You do the same. Thank you.
Sure, bye.
Yes, numbers here 340-773-0390, 340-773-0490. Hermie, I see you. Minio, Alfred, good day to you. Verdell, greetings. I am just Sadia, good morning. Michael, Evelyn, greetings. Elaine Hansen, Ilma Rogers, Joan, Joanne, oh God, screen flipping all over the place. But anyway, greetings to all of you. We are planning an event that's going to be taking place on Juneteenth to celebrate. We'll be out there with food and drinks at the Brew House down in the Five Corners Plaza. Next week, Friday for Juneteenth, June 19th, we'll be out there from, I would say, 6:00 p.m. We'll be hanging out at the Brew House. Get your food, get your drinks, come out and meet me Juneteenth. You'll hear the advertisements on the radio, but I just wanted to throw that out there to you guys again. And today, 1 p.m. through 3 p.m. for those of you who are still needing a summer camp for your little campers, the ages of 8 through 12 years old. It is free of charge to you parents. We will provide breakfast. We will provide lunch and a safe environment, nice and cool, where we can go through the culture and history, have our older Crucians come in and talk about St. Croix and their growing up experience. Show them the old time games, movies. We'll have interactions with other community organizations to give them a well-rounded summer experience. So if you have a little camper, you know that their parent is having a little bit of issues finding them somewhere to go, that is a healthy environment, safe environment for them to be, where they can have a nice warm meal and have some fellowship and spend some time with me, because I'll be there from 8 a.m. to 2:30. From Monday to Friday, we'll be at the Brew House, but you have to register, and we'll have the discussion. I'm extending to today because today is the day, right? For cutoff, we had registrations yesterday. I know some of you couldn't make it. You are working. Some of you called me and texted me, so I said I will take out extra time today between 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Five Corners Plaza. Just look for the Brew House sign outside. It is in the same building as Starlight used to be. There's a dental office there as well. There is a big sign outside. It's a crash on that sushi place. And yeah, just look for me there. Let's get your camper registered, and we will be there on Monday from 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Okay. So you can't say you did not know. And then Juneteenth, same location. Check us out. Food, drinks, and a nice time. All right. So I think that I kept it cute today. I didn't you know rough up anybody. I am just giving my undivided attention to this taxi commission situation because I know that we have put in some long, hard hours. I believe that the taxi drivers need the support. We need to support those entrepreneurs. That is a gateway industry for our young Virgin Islanders to become business owners. And I believe we need to continue to support those families. They are a part of us, and everything is not always about bashing and assumptions, and we need to educate ourselves more about what they do, how they function, and how it impacts our lives here in the territory, and support our taxi drivers and their families throughout this process by allowing for support of new monies into the taxi cab commissions coffers so that they can do what they need to do to protect our transportation industry, right? In addition to that, I look forward to, I mean, I am getting so eager, but I am letting the Democrats do what they do. Their primary is August 1st. I encourage all of you to come out and partake in the process in November, the 3rd of November, my daughter's birthday. It's also election day. So we gonna walk out something. But um, I want you all to be a part of the process, educate yourself on the candidates, come out and ask us the tough questions. You know, I look forward to doing some interviews that will be set up as the time goes on after the primary and the general election gets on its way. But I am absolutely grateful again to all of you that send me your prayers in my inbox. You send messages to me. Those of you who have come out and patronized our events so far, we've had a few events in preparation for what's next, and I appreciate y'all so much for joining me here every Saturday from 10 to 12 on WSTX AM 970. We're almost at the top of the hour, so all I want to tell you all is make sure that whatever you do, you make the place better than what you met, that you participate in our election process, that you be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. I'll be at the brew house between 1 and 3 p.m. today. This is our final registration for our free summer camp. If you have a camper ages 8 through 12 and you need some place for them to go, we provide food for them, we provide education and games and support systems for them. Meet me today. All right, thank you all so much for joining me here and keeping in touch with my people. This has been Elizabeth Hansen Watley. Until next time, be great, safe, and see you then. Bye.
Greetings. I am Elizabeth Hansen Watt, a senator not only for